Now, here to present the 2013 Noyce Award is another distinguished leader in our industry, SIA's outgoing chairman, Ajit Manocha. Ajit, before I step out, I just want to say thank you very much for all of your leadership. It's meant more to me and the SIA staff than I can possibly say. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I think we should give one more round of applause to Brian's leadership and his entire staff. They really put a great show. Last year was a fantastic show, and this year is even better. So let's give a big hand to Brian and his team. Before I start, I'd like to welcome John Kelly as the incoming chairman. I think there will be hardly anybody in this room who doesn't know John Kelly. John is a celebrity. But more importantly, I call him Mr. IBM, Mr. Technology, Mr. Research. I think there can be a lot of titles besides his Senior VP of IBM or whatever. Why it's important? This job as a chairman, there are so many important things that you have to be an industry veteran to deal with the policy matters, because we would not be there where we are today had not been the leadership of people like John. And especially, he's a second-time chairman. Now, a year ago, when I got to this position, it's no secret at that time Global Foundries were going through a major transformation. And then I had this responsibility of chairman of SIA. And I did not know what I was getting into. But I learned a lot. And I'm still learning, of course. But one thing I learned about Washington, D.C., you all learn about how dysfunctional it is. I actually witnessed it. You know, simple issues like helium supply, which really has no political agenda behind it. You talk to Democrats, they're going to say, these Republicans don't cooperate with me. You talk to Republicans, they say, these Democrats don't cooperate with me. Believe it or not, in one of the meetings, I said, I'm really disappointed. Why the hell you don't put the proud American hat on and deal with a damn issue? I said it, and these were senior politicians. So at least we got that issue resolved. And now there are still some difficult issues and easy issues, which I know John Kelly will do it very, very well, especially the tax reform issue. So in any case, I think SIA is in a great hands. And John, congratulations again. Now, one thing I will say before I come to the real topic today of the Bob Noyce Award. I tell you, being part of the SIA, I cannot be more proud of being part of this industry. First thing is that every time I've been with politicians in DC and other places, SIA name is very well recognized, a great brand, and they take us very seriously because we are shaping this industry. We are influencing the lives of everybody in this world. So SIA is a great brand, and I will say that the other important thing which is recognized about SIA is the great unification of the best leaders of this industry together. And we are taken very seriously everywhere. So be part of SIA, and those who are not members, please join. So Brian, I made a pitch on your behalf. Okay, Bob Noyce Award. You know, Robert Noyce, co-founder of Fairchild, Intel, and this award is given to the best inventors, the best accomplished people in this industry. And every year, this award is given to the key people that you will all say that I get it. Makes sense. And today, again, we're recognizing another important person, Mike Splinter. So I don't think there will be anybody who will say, who? So before we come to the award, there's a small video about Bob Noyce Award. Can we put the video on, please? Now, a little bit about Mike Splinter. As Brian said, Mike started tinkering with electronics at home, and he built his first transistor at the age of 18. And he's devoted his career to making chips. First job at Rockwell, then lead Intel's manufacturing, worldwide manufacturing, from entry-level engineer to CEO of Applied Materials. He's changed how chips were made. He pioneered the concept of mega fab, copy exact, just to name the few. And he built the most complex semiconductor devices. I think he probably has built more chips than anybody else in the world, obviously coming from Intel. And now being part of Applied, God knows how many chips they're making. One decade at Applied Materials, a lot of innovation and manufacturing every day, globally and locally. Highest measure of success is seen in Mike by the people that he dealt with and the people he has developed. The people who work for Mike, they are become leaders in their own aspects and own careers in different companies. And many people you meet, they say, yeah, I work for Mike. And they are really he has taken a lot of pride and effort in developing a lot of leaders in this industry. In fact, when I became CEO 2.5 years ago, he called for a lunch meeting. I thought he was going to try to sell me more equipment. But he said, Ajit, I really want you to be successful, and these are the 3 things that you need to focus on as a CEO. I was so touched that day. And Mike, thank you. Your advice was so valuable. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here today. Mike is not only known in this country. He has been around the globe, from White House to Israel, from Costa Rica to throughout Asia. In fact, I had the opportunity to visit the President of India's office in 2005 and go to the President's office and see a picture of Mike Splinter inside. This is a guy with the straightforward analysis from an engineer's brain to a leader's vision. In fact, the slogan that I will say about Mike applies the most is Intel inside to applied everywhere. Under his leadership, Applied recognized as leader being exemplary citizen, voted most admired, ethical, innovative, philanthropic. I think I can stand here all day and talk about Mike's background, Mike's successes, accomplishments, but there is some fun side of Mike, the personal side of Mike. You know, when I was young in Bell Labs, I used to come home and talk to my people, say, the wafers out of the fab, equipment are not, the chips working. My children thought I work in a vending making machine, because I talk about wafers and chips. And Mike has something similar. He has been busy with making candies from the childhood. He still makes candies from the machines which are kind of made by his great-great-grandfather. And he takes a lot of fun in that. But if you ask Mike, what's your dream job? He says, fab manager. Mike, after you're done with Applied and Tokyo Electron, you can come to Global Foundries. Now, why is fit for a fab management job? You need to be competitive, and safety is very important. Of course, for SIA, we take that very seriously, safety. Now, Mike has been, and there are many more aspects, of course. When it comes to safety, you know, before seat belts were invented, he drove cars with a helmet on. And he still does it. So, and that's so important trait for himself, because he develops tools which have to be, of course, very safety conscious. So Mike, fab management job, ideal qualification. And I said about competitiveness. He's so competitive. When he travels with his team, goes to international countries, of course, you know, and everywhere you go, you have to go through immigration. He will say about half a dozen people with him, say, guys, let's see who comes out of the other end of the immigration line first. So they take different lines and compete, and he always is the first one. It's very competitive spirit, and Mike does a very good job. So with that, I would like to show a small video that Mike's team prepared. Can we have the video, please?
So I first met Mike when I came to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Mike was the gang leader of the integrated circuit department.
Mike and I first met in the late 70s when he joined Intel as a factory manager.
I actually first met him when he was at Intel. He was first a client and then became a very good friend.
I first met him when he was at Intel. I was calling on him when I was as president of the Sharks.
I first met Mike when he joined as CEO for Applied Materials.
Mike is special in the sense that as an executive, he's got an incredible balance between being very results-oriented, data-driven, and at the same time very, let's use the word people-oriented in terms of supporting his people.
Mike is an inspiring leader. Among his many strengths, I would like to focus on two things: his emphasis on teamwork and customers.
Mike has really gotten into the community in which he works, lived, and played, and I think that makes a big difference.
What I really like about Mike is his sense of humor. Anything that happens, Mike deals with it very well. And he laughs about it, he doesn't get upset, and he rolls with the punches.
Mike loves to embrace different cultures. He's fun to be around. One time we took him to see and visit Applied Materials India. And there he is. He put on the traditional Indian clothes and started dancing with the Indian team, Bollywood style. Well, it was just only slightly better than the Gangnam style he did in Korea.
I think Mike is passionate about just a wide variety of things, very civic-minded, very passionate about supporting his people, very passionate about running a great organization.
Mike's passions are a good cigar, wonderful wine, his family, his friends.
Mike loves to make Christmas candies from basics. And he does those especially for children at Christmas time.
One word that describes Mike to me would be dependable.
A good friend, a real friend.
Courageous.
Engaging.
Platinum integrity.
One of the key things about Mike is really his perseverance. He started in this industry at 10 micron technology. Today, our customers are working on 10 nanometer technology. To be able to survive the ups and downs of this industry and still keep pushing the innovation, that's just amazing.
He is a true gift to the universe, to all those of whom know him. And boy, that's a big universe. But he's probably the most humble human being I know.
If I had to say one thing about Mike,
It would be that I appreciate him as a friend. I appreciate him what he has done in his industry.
Thank you for being my friend, and I'm fortunate to have you in this journey of life with me.
Mike, on behalf of thousands of Applied Material employees, I want to congratulate you, and all of us are very proud of you.
Mikey, you rock.
Mike, congratulations.
Hey, coming over, Brian? Thank you. Thank you.
Floor is yours, Mike.
Oh, thanks, Ajit. Thank you very, very much. And Brian, thank you. And thank you to the SIA. This organization just does fantastic work for all of its members. And I can't think of two better people to lead the organization than Ajit in these last few years. And John, second time around, but Wilf Corrigan told me he did it 3 times. So before you're done, you're going to be able to do one more role. You know, I've had the amazing good fortune to be part of this industry all of my adult life. And it's really been wonderful, and I've been humbled to be part of this industry. And to be honored by you tonight just means a whole lot to me, and especially for an award that's inspired by Bob Noyce. Especially because I spent a good part of my career at one of the companies he founded, a small semiconductor company, Intel. I'd also like to recognize my wife, Pat, who's here with me tonight. She's been an amazing, amazing partner, and to my family, and all of my friends who gave up, I guess, the Stanford game tonight to be able to come here and join me. You know, when I was growing up, and Ajit said this, I made my first transistor at age 18 in my freshman year at college. That was in the days when you could actually make a transistor by yourself. But growing up, my father had a TV store, and we worked on electronics, and he really introduced me to electronics. And while most families in their homes have play areas for their kids, we had a radio room. And the radio room was replete with soldering irons and testers and lots of vacuum tubes. And the way I would spend time with my father was to build things, build amplifiers and radios, and we would fix TVs. So by the time I got to go to college, I knew I wanted to be an electrical engineer. Later in the fall of 1974, with a couple of double E degrees in hand from the University of Wisconsin, where I met Sanjeev Chitra. Thank you, Sanjeev, for your comments earlier. I came out to California, drove to California in the fall of '74, and I came to the most exciting spot in electronics, Anaheim, California. I joined Rockwell's Electronics Research Center. That's where it was located. And it was obvious for a Midwest kid like myself to join Rockwell, and because it was close to the beach. It made perfect sense. You know, 40 years have passed, and it's hard to believe it, but I am still excited to be part of this industry because this is the greatest industry on Earth. Transistors are the miracle of the modern age, and I still like thinking about what those next generation of transistors are going to be like. The inventions are going to be incredible. And we've made incredible advances in transistors over the years. We've taken the channel length, as somebody said, Ron Deere said, 10 microns. Actually, in those days, we measured in mils, but we hadn't got to the metric system yet, actually bigger than 10 microns, down to a few nanometers, and we've reduced the cost to make a transistor by 20 million times. And I do believe that qualifies us for being the most productive industry in the history of the world. Tonight, as I accept this honor, I'd like to share just a few ideas and a few thoughts, maybe lessons that I've learned over this past 40 years. And maybe some of them can be applied over the next 40. I guess this is the 36th year, Brian, so maybe the next 36 years or so. The first thought is that everything, and I mean everything, can be made better when it's made with integrated circuits. And whether integrated circuits are controlling the functions or the functions have been transformed into an integrated circuit, as so many things have, almost every mechanical, physical system can be made better with integrated circuits. And as a result, the semiconductor industry is perhaps the only industry that has an infinite number of applications. From books to auction houses to record players to radios, we know all of these things, to telephones, all have been changed beyond recognition because of semiconductors. And over the decades, semiconductors have enabled a huge amount of people, billions of people, to have wonderful devices in their hands that have changed their lives, brought the power of information, and allowed them to live lives that they perhaps never thought that they would live before. Our industry helped define a new world that is flat, with technology as an equalizer. Together, we've laid a new foundation for how we interact, unleashing the power of social media and opening up possibilities for individuals to speak out and change the world. And today, we're on the verge of the Internet of Things, and when I think about that, I just think the possibilities are unbelievably endless. You know, I'm part of the generation of engineers who grew up watching Star Trek. They had a communicator, voice activation, and many other space stations. These devices of science fiction. And as we've gone through my career, we've turned these science fiction ideas really into science fact. Now, we're still missing the tricorder and the transporter beam. I'm pretty sure we're going to get the tricorder. The transporter, I'm not so sure about, but perhaps the Hyperloop will substitute for that. Chips have just begun to unlock the future, and I'm sure that the creativity and passion of this next generation means we are only at the start of what's possible. The next point I'd like to make is that do not, maybe you shouldn't give advice about not to do things, but I think this one is important. Do not predict that Moore's Law is going to end. I wrote a paper about the end of Moore's Law in 1979. It was really a brilliant paper. Foundation, the logic was impeccable, but it was brilliantly wrong. Moore's Law is not about the end. It's really about the beginning and the pace of innovation and ingenuity. You can't predict the creativity, the innovation that people are going to bring to this problem. I've spent decades working with engineers and technologists much smarter than me, and if there's one thing I'm certain of, it's that we will always come up with new ways to increase the density of computing. And we're going to do that because the world wants it and the world needs it. When I look at the roadmap, I don't see the end of anything, but I do see the opportunity for innovation and creativity and for real engineering. If you think linearly, then yes, we're going to reach the physical limits of transistors in the next 10 or 15 years. Fortunately for all of us in this room, there are thousands and thousands of engineers with amazing ideas about new novel materials and novel structures that they're going to bring that creativity to play and keep Moore's Law going. You just look at vertical NAND and FinFETs, and I have to believe this is just the beginning. Creativity and new thinking are what's going to keep the observation that Gordon had so many years ago going long into the future. My final point, and this is something I say to young engineers, is you must be willing to take risks. The future, what's going to happen in the future, is not going to come to those who play it safe. Change is ahead, and as I think about the successes in my career, it's when I spoke up, when I pushed the envelope, and when I was willing to take a risk. Each year, we build on the legacy of those who have gone before us, the giants who made this industry great and changed the world. So don't be afraid. You're going to fail anyway. And that's just what engineers do before creating something fantastic. Today we hear people argue that there's not the same opportunities as there were in the past, and perhaps, gee, where are my children going to find jobs? Now, I agree that the successful models for economics and industry that occurred in the last century are really not the path forward. The path forward is going to be characterized by innovations that reimagine business and transportation and healthcare and education. And as I think about that, the people, the countries, the companies that are best at quantifying and taking these risks are the ones that will have the most success and prosper. I have a message for our next great engineers. If you're not embracing your own opportunities with a global entrepreneurial spirit, don't expect anyone to do it for you. Today, there are more opportunities, larger markets, and lower barriers to success for more people than at any time in history. And it's just another thing that gets me so excited about the future. And so, I thank you for this honor tonight. As a lifelong chip guy, this means a great deal to me. And I think my dad would believe that all that tinkering was put to good use. So remember, we are the industry of possibilities and promise. We have all the tools we need, and if we just add a little creativity and courage, we can create a much brighter future. So, as Bob Noyce said, and I think he had it right, go off and do something wonderful. Thank you, and good night.